everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello. Welcome to a little chatty video. Welcome to my books. And at some point you may see my kitten because she's currently sleeping next to me. And if she decides to wake up, that'll be fun. But welcome to my video. Today we're gonna chat a little bit about a little bit of everything, I think. Because there have been a few things on my mind recently with the books that I've been reading, and I wanted to chat. So this may end up being a diatribe on dystopian books. It might be a diatribe on the state of the world. It might end up just be me sitting here, I don't know, talking about random shit. That's usually what my videos end up being anyways. I did also want to talk about something that I mentioned in my recent vlog, which was a required reading for my channel. I mentioned it off the fly, and I figured I might as well kind of get into that a little bit more. But this has all been stirred up by this book right here, Parable of the Sower. Parable of the Sower, however you pronounce that word.
Sower.
Let's talk about Parable of the Sower first and foremost. I picked this up because, one, I originally bought this book because I saw it at a bookstore here in town, and it was a little like indie bookstore, a very cute, very witchy store that my friend Sophia was taking me to. I'd never been there before, and usually when I go to bookstores, especially small ones and indie ones, I have to buy something. Just because I'm there and I'm supporting them, I have to buy something. So I was looking through the books, and then I saw Miss Butler on the shelves, and I was like, you know, it's time. It's time we bring Miss Butler into my life, because I have been seeing Parable of the Sower, Parable of the Talents, Kindred, Fledgling, all of those books all over the internet for so many years. And especially recently, it has picked up quite a bit. I did pick this up last year. It has remained on my TBR because I felt like I needed to wait to read it for a perfect moment to read it. And the fact that our current world is a little, just a touch on fire and falling apart, I felt like now was probably a very timely time to do it. And then I had picked it up, picked it off my shelves, being like, okay, I'm gonna read this in February. But I also run the My Friends Pick My TBR video in February, and my friend Sophie ended up picking this for me anyways to read. So I was like, I was gonna read it no matter what. It was either gonna be me choosing it or one of my friends picking it off my TBR for me to read for the month. I'm so glad she ended up picking it, and this is the first book that I read for that video. Oh my god. So this is an immediate 5-star. It wasn't necessarily an immediate 5-star because this was definitely something. I had a very interesting reading experience with it where I ended up reading this in one sitting. I don't recommend doing that. I just couldn't put it down. I just had nothing else going on. So I just read it in one sitting, but I do plan on rereading it because this book demands to be actually like, you have to spend time with it. You can't just blow through it like I did. But I did because I also couldn't put it down. Like, it was a double-edged sword type situation. I also found the beginning a little bit slow. I found a lot of the years of 2024 to 2026 a little bit of a slog, and I was waiting for something to happen. So when I finished this, I was just like, wow, Octavia, what the fuck? What the fuck? Upon thinking about it, and I can't get this out of my head, it is 5 stars. It is a masterpiece of nuance and perfection, and like the way that Octavia E. Butler navigates the themes discussed in here is so, I think I use the word gentle and also brutal. Like, it is just so beautifully done. And that set me off. This set me off a little bit. That night after I had finished this, I ranted to my vlog about it. So you will probably see most of that rant in that video if I don't edit it down to make sense, because I don't think I was making a lot of sense when I was filming that vlog. I went off on the fact that there's just a disconnect with books that are released today in this kind of a genre most of the time. Like, it is, I find, like, how am I going to try to say this? I feel like if you're writing a book today that is tackling all of the themes and topics that this one does, you're going to be hit over the head with it in the books that are coming out today. Because the readership of today doesn't digest nuance the way that we used to, or that we're supposed to. I think that is a commentary on the literacy in schools and the education system that's gone down the drain, honestly, very recently, and has been for many, many years. Sure, this is not talking about the individuals. Like, a lot of people, including myself, are very privileged and have been raised as readers and critical thinkers and that kind of thing, and we can easily, get our hands on this and understand it and sink into the themes and really pull it apart in the way it's meant to be. The literacy of the masses just don't get it, and they have to be hit over the head with these things to be able to understand what the authors are saying. I got so mad about that because I was thinking about literacy rates and the fact that a lot of kids today, a lot of teachers are just saying like they just don't have the ability to comprehend sentences or paragraphs that they're given. They've lost that ability to critically think, to understand, and that scares me for a lot of the future generations coming up. Because if we're losing that literacy and it's being reflected in the literature that is coming out today, and the fact that when we have books that tackle these themes and include these themes, they're not nuanced. Because if they are nuanced, people miss the point. They have to be blatant, loud, and in your face, right? And I got really mad about that because it just made me think of like how sad that is that we have to now do that. And I think that's reflected a lot in a lot of the books that are coming out. Like one of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head is When Women Were Dragons or The Women Could Fly. Those two books are very like, okay, well, When Women Were Dragons, that one is very baby's first feminism book. And so it's very white. It's a little straight. It doesn't want to push any boundaries, but it is very, very blatant about women being oppressed, right? And then The Women Could Fly is a little better, but again, it's just like the themes and the topics that are brought up in all of these books, they just hit you over the head with what's going on because people don't get it anymore. Like you have to drill it into their heads for them to understand what you're trying to say because they just don't have the ability to understand what you're trying to say. And I don't know if this makes any sense. Like if this is making any sense at all, but this is what reading this book did to me. Other than the fact that this was utterly terrifying to read because this was written in the 80s and published in 1993, and the rhetoric that is in here, coming around in the 2024, 2025 years that are in here about the people, from the presidency, from the new administration, is achingly, terrifyingly familiar. And it is too real. Like I went off on a diatribe to my therapist about this book because that's how much it affected me. Like the fact that this book, compared to a lot of the dystopian books that I have read in my life, which aren't necessarily that many, but there are a bunch of them, compared to them all, I think this book, it doesn't have that bombastic nature of a lot of the like Hunger Games or Divergent or why am I only thinking of YA ones? But you know what I mean? Like those typical mainstream dystopian books that have these like big problems. The world has completely shattered and fallen apart. And now we have a young teenage girl coming to save the day, right? Like those are bombastic. Those are big, explosive stories. Even if like The Last of Us, like that is a very explosive story. That one does not have a little girl who's about to save the day. That one actually has a really interesting narrative lean that I'm very intrigued by. But I'm not going to spoil anything because game and TV shows are out there. But like, it's so interesting that this one is the most realistic that I have read. Even though a lot of dystopians to me are very, very realistic and like I can see them happening or coming true in some ways. This one, if we adjusted where we're at and where the US is at, like 20 degrees to the right, we're here. Not even 20 degrees, 10 degrees. 10 degrees to the right, we are here. It's terrifying. And the way that the world has fallen apart in here, it talks about the environmental issues and the fires. And having read this right off of the LA fire that just ripped through LA, and the fact that like Australia and BC as well are always on fire at some point every year because it just gets worse and worse every year. Then we also have like the distrust in politicians and the crumbling of human life. That to me was the most terrifying thing about this. And it got me thinking about all the other like dystopian books, of course, that I've read. Because of course, a lot of sci-fi books are just considered dystopian at this point. Like that's like their subgenre that they fall into because they are not necessarily like set in a utopia that is actually very corrupt. Like we have Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and that whole society of like people have figured out how to live forever and thus we must, you know, cull the population every so often to keep the balance. And we have things like Chain Gang All-Stars that has this privatized prison system that is put together, and it's like people fighting for the death just at a chance for freedom. And I like this is also quite realistic with the way that it depicts the justice system and how far people could go with the justice system, and it is so possible. I think that is what really freaks me out about dystopian fiction. Like, these two books are so possible that I would not be surprised if something akin to these books came true. And it is honestly a little freaky. Like, I saw a TikTok the other day from Chloe Gong because her new YA dystopian is coming out. I think it's called Cold Game? I could be wrong. The cover is so cool. But she talked about this in a TikTok. She was like, listen, because I have this dystopian coming out this year and like what we're all dealing with in the world, please remember that this book was written in 2022 and 2023. I'm sorry that I'm a prophetess. And it is a little insane that a lot of dystopian books hit that way. And a lot of sci-fis that deal with like futurism, if it's not like a super far-flung sci-fi, like maybe if we talk about like the Deep Sky by Yumi Kitase. Like, this is an attempt to save humanity by putting like 100 women or something on a space shuttle and sending them far out to try, you know, survive because of the way the world is. Like, it's that level of sci-fi always feels very dystopic to me. But when you have a actual marketed dystopian book, for example, like the OG, The Hunger Games. I know this is not the OG. But it is the OG for a lot of us readers, as in what was the first one we read. You know, you could have 1984. That's another one that's really freaking scary because of how real it could be. And I think there's this commentary about authors and how much, especially sci-fi authors that write in these veins, they have a finger or a thumb on the pulse of what humans are like. And the issue is here, a lot of, and what I've like, you know, come to learn as a reader and as a person as I've gotten older, like history just keeps repeating itself. And so if you study a lot of what humans have done throughout history, you can easily predict the trajectory of humanity. And you can probably do a lot of what these dystopic authors have done and write something that in a couple years might be coming true. And it is a little scary. It is honestly scary. Do I have a point to this video? No, I just wanted to kind of, you know, vent about things and how scary it is and talk about a couple dystopic books. Because listen, it is not just in this type of like, the world has fallen as we know it. Like, this is America, you know? This is America from Pan Am or whatever, right? This is America. And this is also America as things have fallen apart, and it's people who are living through it. It's people who are experiencing the downfall of the systems in it. And it's the people who come out of the dust and try pull things together to save everybody. Like, that is what dystopia is to me. And I don't know, like, you guys let me know in the comments your thoughts about dystopian literature and some of your favorites, because I don't know what it is about this, but the fact that we are going through this as a people, I'm Canadian. I'm living on the borders of what's happening, and we are, the whole world is affected by this. The whole world is obsessed with this right now because it's all that we can talk about. It's all that's going on. There's so many other things happening in the world, but it's the only thing that the media is focusing on, right? This is the biggest thing right now, which is so sad because there are so many other things, like the folks in Gaza who have a ceasefire and are still struggling and have no homes and all that kind of stuff, and the terrible things that are going on in Sudan and Congo, and the fucking, you know, the world is falling apart fucking everywhere. But the fact that we are so focused in on this right now, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling the need to read a lot of dystopian literature, which is a little baffling because I just read this and it fucking sent me. But I immediately ordered the second book in this duology, and I'm going to be reading that as soon as I get my hands on it, because I feel like there is something cathartic about reading books that are kind of mirroring the shit that we're going through in real life, even though a lot of people read for escapism and stuff like that. I think reading books like this gives us a unique opportunity and a unique viewpoint on these things. And I mentioned it to my therapist as I was going on a diatribe of about Parable of the Sower, is that growing up, having read all these dystopian books and having been raised in the dystopian era personally, of Hunger Games and Divergent and all that kind of stuff, the fact that we have been raised on this literature, and this literature always told us that the little guy will always win, yet being in this right now and feeling like, okay, I feel like a bystander in this. Like, I don't feel like the hero, because that does not exist. There's not one person, there's not one Katniss Everdeen to take down the system. There is not that one person who's going to be the hero and save the day. We are living through a dystopia right now. We're living through the opening of a dystopian novel, and there is no main character to save the day. So it's like you almost, it just feels like you have to take up a little bit of that heroic mantle to do something. Like, it just stay present, to pay attention, and like just the least you can do. It's terrifying. And I don't know if any of you also feel like this, and I don't know if there's a point to this video, but I have a couple other, I don't even know. Again, some of my favorite books could be considered dystopic, especially with worlds falling apart and having to pull yourself back together again and again and again and again, like in the 5th season. I mean, the Hunger Games has been repeated so many times. It's terrifying that we as humans can write this kind of literature and then, I don't know, just be able to predict humanity through it. It's a little spooky scary. Yeah, another one that I have on my TBR is Gutter Child by J.L. Richardson. This is another dystopic book, which I'm going to be reading soon. Another one that I recommend also is Moon of the Crusted Snow by Wabgishig Rice, which is an indigenous story about a res out in like northern Ontario that's very disconnected from any communities or any towns, because that's what the government did. They put the reses out so far that's how it worked. You were just disconnected from everything. And it's them losing power because all of Canada lost power. And it's the days after that. It's the winter. It's surviving, right? And I also really recommend Marrow Thieves by Sherry DeMillin. Even though I didn't love it myself, it is very, very YA. It is an exceptionally well done book for that same innate fear, that same survival instinct that comes out in all of these books. And I think that is really at the heart of any of this. It's just, yes, authors have a weird look at humanity, and we definitely can, maybe it's not just authors, but we are the ones who write the stories about it. But like, it's the way that we can lock in on what humans do and terrible humans do, and power and greed and all this kind of stuff. But we also lock in on what just the regular folks do, and how that need for survival comes out. I think that is what I want to take out of a lot of dystopian books, and this weird moment that I'm in is that, yeah, there is no hero that's going to come save the day, because we are not actually in a story. We are living in real life, but it feels like, no matter how much it feels like we're living through the beginning of a dystopian novel with everything that's going on, everyone can be a little bit of a hero for themselves and for the people around them. And maybe that'll do some change. Maybe that'll help a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, so that's kind of my diatribe on dystopians. Please leave me more recommendations down below. As I think about it more and more, like, I pulled up a list of a bunch of dystopians that were online, and I was looking at it and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that one was as well. Like The Maze Runner that I read when I was a kid is another one. It's also very interesting that a lot of them are aimed at kids, because it's a lot of YA literature that is dystopian. As I said, Scythe by Neil Shusterman. There's just so many. Animal Farm. Of course, fucking The Handmaid's Tale, Divergent, Clockwork Orange, literally The Road, like The Giver, The Time Machine, any of these classics. And then today, of course, we have like Chain Gang All-Stars and Gutter Child and a bunch of N.K. Jemisin's work. And it's so interesting that we're still out here writing these dystopian and I guess post-apocalyptic works. And we're still showing that yes, humanity does go in these cycles of history, and the bad guys seem to always be in power, and the ones that are, destroying the world and writing their own rules But then there are also people, the everyday people, who are still here, still surviving, you know? Fahrenheit 451, Lord of the Flies, all of these ones, right? Like, and then I guess you can get into like, I just scrolled past a bunch of like The Uglies or Matched or any of those that were very popular. Legend, when I was in high school. The City of Ember, The Time Machine. That's really it. And you know what? As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I did throw around that word, or that saying, the required reading for my channel. And I'm definitely gonna have to like do a video specifically on the required reading for my channel. But I mentioned 3 books when I said that in my vlog, and that was The Parable of the Sower, and also Chain Gang All-Stars, and also The 5th Season. Because these 3 books are fucking masterpieces. Each of them just seem to have such a unique, prescient view on the world and the stories that they're telling and the themes and topics that they're bringing up. Like, these are the 3 books that I think everybody should read, no matter what kind of a reader you are. Yes, some of them can be a little terrifying, but they're all so good no matter what, and they're also important to read. And I think that it's interesting that like Parable is more literary, Chain Gang All-Stars is a little bit more like sci-fi, and then 5th Season is more fantasy leaning, but like they all hit on a very similar chord with that need for survival and that, you know, just like, I don't know what it is, but these are the 3 books that I think are required reading for everybody. They should just be on your TBR at all times, or if not, read them. If you have already read them, read them again. So that's really it. I don't know what this diatribe was going for, but like, yeah, dystopian books, I'm terrified of them. And I also love them deeply for what they do and what they have done. I'm really intrigued to see what's gonna come out of this time in the next couple of years, and to see what trends kind of go forward from here in books, in movies, in any kind of content like that. Because you can feel it in the way that like the Super Bowl halftime show was. Like, you can feel it if you're on the right side of the internet, like coming out on like TikTok, and a lot of the anger and the revolutionary feelings that are coming out of this. It's kind of interesting to be a part of it and to witness it as you're going through, as you're living through it. And yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of this art-wise. And other than that, I just hope you guys are all doing okay. And feel free to vent in the comments if you so wish. Feel free to give me more recommendations in the comments if you so wish. I don't know what the point of this video was other than just me yapping, but dystopian books, prescient and important. Yeah, okay. For compensation of sitting through this and listening to me yap, and my voice is going, that's fun. I'll give you a kitten. Gorgeous. Oh, a big stretchy. Can I take you? Can I pick you up? Can I love you? Are you gonna get mad at me? Oh, you never get mad at me. Oh, I got you, sweet girl. The baby. The little Freya. A goose. Yes. Anyways, my friends, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all doing well. Remember to take care of yourselves, no matter what. I'll catch you in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading. Yeah, I'm sorry I took you from your spot. You want to go back and sleep? Because I love you so much. You're helping me get through the dystopian woes.